Alright, so today for math, we are going back to telling time. We're telling time to the half hour, most importantly today. But before we get started, we need to go over our vocabulary real quickly. I'm going to do like 1 or 2 examples with our clock, and then by the end of my review, you should be able to do this worksheet. We're going to do a couple together, and then you're going to pause the video and do the rest on your own. Alright, so the first vocab term we have is digital. So we have a digital clock. A digital clock is like this. It has the hour first, and then it will have these 2 dots. These 2 dots are called a colon, and then it will have the minutes after. Now an analog clock looks like this. It's circular, and it has numbers 1 through 12, and it has 2 hands. Moving on to those hands, our hour hand is the small hand. Hour is a smaller word than minute, so that's always something you can think about too. Hour is smaller, so that means it has to have the smaller hand. Minute is a long word, so it means the longer hand. Alright, so let's talk about our analog clock, because today on our worksheet, we are going to have to look at the analog clocks and tell the time on a digital clock. So looking at a analog clock real quickly, you will notice that we talked about when that big minute hand is at the top, that it means it's o'clock. It's at the top of the hour. We talked about how our minute hand will go around, and it's a total of 60 minutes. Our hour hand is something that only pays attention to the big numbers, these big numbers here. He's in charge of telling us the hour. These big numbers tell us the hour. Our minute hand is a little bit trickier. Each of these, when we get to each one, we count by 5s. We are supposed to get through 60 minutes for 1 hour, so let's see if we're correct. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. So there's 60 minutes in 1 hour. And right now we look at our hour hand, and he's pointing to the 3. So it's 3, and it's at the top, which means 3 o'clock. It would be at the beginning of a new hour. Something else that we talked about, when our minute hand goes around, we start to notice that our hour hand starts to move with him. He's starting to move closer to that 4. So eventually, when it gets to 4 o'clock. And that will continue for the entire time. It'll just keep shifting over. So the next thing we need to talk about is half hour. So we said that when this minute hand is at the top, it is o'clock. But when our minute hand is here at the bottom on the 6, we call it the half hour. And when we count back from 12 to 6, we have 30 minutes. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Something else that we talked about with the half hour as well is we start to notice that our hand is not directly on one number. But we said that this part, I always like to think about, if it's in the middle, it always goes back some. Or you can think of this whole area as the 5 space. So it would be 5:30. This whole area belongs to the 5. Now, if we move forward again, so we go back to 6 o'clock, here we are at a new hour, count 30 minutes forward, so 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, so the minutes are 30. We know that it hasn't quite touched the 7, so we know it has to be 6. Also, if we look, the number behind the hour hand is a 6, so all of this area has to belong to the 6. The whole time that hour hand is inside that zone, it's going to be 6 something, 6:30 for this case. But as you see, as it continues going forward, then it will finally hit the 7 when it hits 7 o'clock. Alright, so if we were going to do an example on our board real quickly, from digital or analog to digital. Alright, so if I have my little pretend digital clock written up there, And I'm going to set this clock to a time. Alright. So this is my time. So my first step should be looking at that hour hand. Where is my hour hand at? So hour always goes first when we're doing our digital clock. So let's look. So my time, I noticed that my hour hand is in between again. But I look behind and he's still in that 2 zone. This whole area belongs to the 2. He's not quite gotten to the 3 yet. So my hour would be 2. And my minute hand is on the 6. And we know that that means 30. So it's 2:30. And if you don't know that yet and you're still trying to figure that out, you can always start at your 12 and count by 5s until you get to the 30. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So it landed on our 30. So it's 2:30. It's half past the hour. We're halfway through the hour. Alright, so go ahead and get your paper and we'll get started on our worksheet. Alright, so for our worksheet today, it wants us to write the digital time under each clock. So it gives us our analog clock time. We have to figure out what time it's reading on this clock and put it down in our digital clock. So let's do number 1. We'll do this whole first row together. Oops, sorry, I keep moving around. We'll do this whole first row together, and then I want you to pause the video and complete 5 through 12 on your own. So the first row says, first clock says this. I have my little hour hand. Remember, my hour hand is my short hand because hour is short. And my minute hand, minute is longer, so our minute hand is longer. Alright, so I'm looking for my hour hand first because I know that my hour goes before my double dots or a colon. So I'm going to look for the shorter hand first, and I see it here. And it's in between 2 numbers. So I know that it's still in the 7s area because my time hasn't quite touched the 8. Like I said, you always want to look at your hour hand and then look at the number behind it. So in this case, it's 7. So our hour is 7. Now looking at my minute hand, my longer hand, it's on the 6. And if you don't already know this, you can go ahead and start at your 12 and count by 5s. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Or you can just say, I remember, because anytime the minute hand is on the 6, it's always going to be 30. Alright, let's do another example, number 2. So my first step is to look for my hour hand, because my hour goes first on the digital clock. So here's my hour hand, and it looks like he's still in the 4s area. This area still belongs to the 4, so as long as that our hour hand is pointing in this zone, it belongs to the 4. And it's the number behind the hour hand. So it's 4, and then again, it's on my minute hand's on the 6, so 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. 4:30. Alright, so I'm going to give you a second, and we'll kind of do this far away. So I'm going to tell you to look for the hour hand first on your worksheet. Find the hour hand on your worksheet. If you said this was the hour hand up here, you are correct. I want you to think, what number, what hour is it pointing to? What area does this number, who does that belong to? If you said 12, you are correct. Now I want you to find the minute hand. And if you said this long hand, you are correct. And I want you to think about what number is Miss Riggs going to write here. What number is the minute hand pointing to? Remember, it can't be 6. The big numbers only work for the hours. So what number would Miss Riggs write there? Remember, we count by 5s when we start from the 12 and go all the way around. If you said 30, you are correct. It is 12:30. You forget, you always just start at the 12 and count by 5s when you get to the 1. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Alright, we're going to do one more, and then I want you to pause the video and finish the worksheet on your own. Again, I want you to figure out where is my minute hand or my hour hand pointing to. Here's our hour hand, and here's the area that this number covers. This area only belongs to one number. It can't belong to both. Number. As Mr. Egg's going to write in the hour spot. Remember, hour always goes first in our digital. If you said 1, you are correct. So 1 is the number behind the arrow. So this area all belongs to the 1. So as long as that arrow is pointing in this little spot on the clock, it is 1 something, wherever the minute hand's pointing to. And that takes us to our minute hand. Look at the minute hand and think, oh, the minute hand is pointing at the 6. So instantly your brain should think blank minutes. It's been 30 minutes. Alright, I want you to do the 5 through 12 on your own. And then that is all you have for math today. No Compass Learning assignments for math today. So go ahead and get busy.